Hey y'all, from Spindle Mountain Mercantile, I am Heather. Welcome to my YouTube channel. In today's video, I'm going to show you my two favorite ways to add gold gilding to a picture frame. There's a lot of different ways to do this. These are just my two favorites. For gold gilded frame number one, we're starting with a frame that's already painted in gold tones. We'll add chalk paint to it and then distress that with a wet wipe. I picked this up at a store called Bin Time. It's an Amazon return store, and I got this on 75-cent day. I wish I hadn't taken this plastic off until I was done because, you know, I'm just not the neatest person and I did scratch it a little. These are pretty flimsy, and if you have a frame you're not using, you might want to replace those with glass if you're going to sell something. Just makes it look a little more sharp and high end. I'm going to go ahead and speed up during this part. I'm just figuring out if the picture works in this frame and cutting it down, but that's not what this video is about. I'm using Debi's Design Diary chalk paint in the color crinoline. I'm not using a primer and I won't be sealing it. This paint is very highly pigmented, so a person could get away with one thick coat if they're going to be distressing. But because this is a demonstration, I want to start at the same place with the whole frame, so I did 2 coats, and in a few little places I did add a 3rd coat. Now listen, for sure and for certain, if a brush can be ruined, I'm gonna ruin it. Y'all may be careful with your brushes, but I'm just not with mine, and since I'm smushing it way down in these crevices and nooks and crannies, I'm using a brush I don't care that much about. Normally I would take out the cardboard backing in the picture frame, but this one is connected, and since I'm putting a picture over it, I really don't care if it gets a little paint on it. But if you do mind, you could use painter's tape or craft paper. And once again, we're going to do a lot of the same thing, so I'm going to speed this up and I'll catch y'all in the next step. By the time I got around the whole frame with the first layer of paint and got into all those little nooks and crannies, it had dried. So I didn't stop in between coats, I just kept going with the 2nd coat. For the 3rd coat, I just put in a few places. I did wait for the 2nd coat to dry. Chalk paint dries pretty fast, but if you get impatient, you can use a blow dryer or a heat gun to speed up the process. I'm thinking that I should probably address the cozy wiener dog sweater pajamas that I'm wearing right here. You guys, I didn't realize at this moment that I was going to be working on a big YouTube star persona, so here we are. I woke up early that morning and I had my coffee in my hand, went to let the chickens out. My she shack is right next to my chicken coop, and I knew I had this project I wanted to work on. I knew that paint was dry, so I went out there to distress, and I forgot I had pajamas on. So there you go. It's either an excuse or a reason. I think it's probably an excuse. Maybe it's a reason. I don't know. Anyway, so wet distressing, right? It's a pretty rewarding process. For the effort you put into it compared to the results you get from that effort, it's super easy. I try to use a little bit less distressing because it's easier to distress more than it is to repaint and then distress again. I use wet wipes that I found on the side of the road or in a dumpster. You guys wouldn't believe how many people throw wet wipes away, and a lot of times they're not even, like, the seal is still on them. Some of these crevices I used my fingernail on because it was hard to get down in there, and there's a couple of places where I used a knife. I can't remember what kind of tool I used, but I used something to get down in there and scratch it just on the edges a little bit. So when I'm done using a wet wipe, because it's too dirty, I get out a new one and I wipe the surface that I just distressed, and that gets all the paint off the part that was distressed, and then I keep going. And when I'm done with the whole entire thing, I do that whole process again. I wipe the whole thing down with a clean wet wipe, and that gets all the loose paint or the wet paint off of the surface. And right there, you see where I just sprayed? When you're using dry wet wipes, that's a little bit easier. You can also use a paper towel for this. When I first started with this frame, did you notice how the inside part was cream colored? I had two choices. I could either paint the frame gold and then wait for it to dry and seal it and then put the chalk paint over it and then distress it, or I could just chalk paint it and then add the rub and buff over the top. So I am applying rub and buff in antique gold with a paintbrush and then rubbing it with my finger, and I'm just putting it around the outside edge and then again on the inside edge where it goes next to the glass. Chalk paint has to be sealed when you're done with the project. I like to use Rust-Oleum Clear Coat in matte. It has a little nozzle and I like to use it on 3. So how cute did this frame turn out, right? When I first saw it in the bin, I thought, oh, that's kind of ugly, but I loved the shape and I knew I could do something with it. And I hadn't experienced very much with distressing chalk paint, and I thought, this is the thing I've got to try it with, and I did, and I'm so glad because I love how she turned out. I know earlier I said this video wasn't about the picture, but seriously, how perfect is this frame with this print? For Gold Gilded frame number 2, we're using Debi's Design Diary chalk paint in Carnival Red and her liquid patina in Golden Ticket. On this frame, I only need to use 1 coat because the frame is already red, and Debi's products are all highly pigmented. A little goes a long way. When I found this frame in somebody's trash on the side of the road, it was in great condition, but it was very plain. So I brought it home and I added some molds that I made with Iron Orchid Design air dry clay and their mold called Trimmings. I believe it was Trimmings 2. Might have been Trimmings 1. They're both great. They have a lot of different strips that you can use to frame something or just to fill in spaces, and I thought it looked really good. Well, then I painted it with this paint I bought in Oregon and brought all the way out to South Carolina, and it survived winter and summer and winter and summer, and it was the gooeyest stuff ever. So I gilded it with this little pot of gold paint I bought from someone on Facebook. She was selling a whole bunch of craft stuff, and it was in one of the baskets. And it looked okay, but yeah, it was a little iffy, and it took a long time to do because that gold paint didn't stick very well. Well, now I have Debi's Design Diary chalk paint and her Golden Ticket liquid patina, and they are perfect together. I always shake up my liquid patina real good, and whatever sticks in the lid is usually about how much I need for whatever project. Sometimes I have some left over, and there will be a little bit of thick parts up there. So I just kind of slap it on the top of the mold, and then I go back and dab it into the crevices. Then I take a dry towel and just wipe it. I want the gold to look a little pooled on the edges, so I am painting it on and then waiting. This film is really sped up. Waiting a little bit before I wipe it down, and then I do each corner another time. I do the same thing around the outside edge of the frame. And on the flat white part, I use that dry towel, just a dry paper towel, and it by this time has red on it and gold, and it just kind of wipes little tiny smears of the gold across that flat part, and it looks really good. I have a question I would love for some of you to answer in the comments. Do I need to tell you when I speed things up? Because, you know, I know sometimes I talk really fast and I do things really fast and I think, are they following along? Do they even know what I'm saying? Do they even know what I'm doing? But then I think when I speed it up to 5 times or 10 times, I am not that fast. So I just don't know. Do you want to know when I speed it up, or do you just want to get it over with so you can get out there and make your own thing? So tell me, of the 2 kinds of gilding we did today, do y'all have a preference? I like this one. I don't know if it's because it's just so fun to work with golden ticket and I can add more and wipe it off, and I can't do that when I used to use Rub and Buff before I was introduced to this product. I like Rub and Buff. It has other colors, and that's why I used it to touch up the last frame. But once it's on, it's on. I mean, you have to paint over it. And at least in my experience, you have to paint over it if you put too much. And this, I can just kind of play with it, and it was so much fun. I love how it looks. It would be interesting to do an experiment with 2 frames that were exactly the same. I think that would give a true idea. But this gives a pretty good idea. It's like true idea adjacent anyway. But tell me what you guys think. Have you tried this? Have you tried other methods? What do you like best? One of the cool things about using liquid patina, I don't need to use a sealer. I have enough liquid patina on it that is the sealer. I know I keep saying this video is about the frames and not what I put in them, but y'all, what I put in this frame is so perfect for the frame. I used Iron Orchid Designs Christmas 2024 products, and I used that gilded sheet music and put it on the back of the picture that was in the frame, and then I flipped it over, and then on top of the glass I put the Santa and the Christmas tree, and then I went over it with a small brush and used Debi's DIY Big Top to seal it. It looks perfect with this gilding. Look at the gilding too, how it puddles and pools, and then there's like red underneath in the deep parts, and there's some streaks here and there. I just love how this turned out. I could do that like all day long. I don't have stuff like this in my house. Can you believe that? This is what I want in my house. I want things like this. I want to decorate at Christmas, and then the other parts of the year I want it to look all cute like this. So I hope you guys learned something new, and I hope you try it yourselves. If you do, will you please let me know? And if you liked the video, could you please give me a thumbs up and maybe consider sharing my video? I'll tell you what, when I see my videos out in the wild, like on Facebook, I'm like, what? That's me. I get to go and comment, and that's always fun. And what else? Oh, if you subscribe, that's great too. Every time you do those things, it really helps my channel grow, and I so appreciate it. Until I see you next time, well, until you see me next time, I hope you have a wonderful week, and as always, I hope you are blessed. Bye.